It is time to lift the veil to showcase an inspiring and glorious chapter in our national life using the statement of illustrious American journalist and author John Gunther in his book Inside Africa, published in 1955. Gunther met Chief Obafemi Awolowo in odd circumstances on a lonely road in the bush driving back to Lagos from Ibadan. He had missed him in Ibadan and was pursuing him to Ikenne, his hometown. To catch Chief Awolowo at Ikenne, he had to be there by 5 p.m. since he was proceeding elsewhere. British had forewarned John Gunther, "He would not wait for you, get there on time." This same standard, upheld by one of the founding fathers of Nigeria, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, was built into the public school system with dire consequences for late coming. This is still in force. Ironically, across all spheres in Nigeria today, late coming seems to be the beautiful bride loved by most Nigerians. The same media that feasted with relish on the groveling civil servants of Ekiti who were pleading against the sanction for late coming has not held government officials, senior business leaders, and religious leaders accountable for deliberate late coming to events where they are chief hosts, guest speakers, etc., leaving the audience stranded for hours. We tend to explain this anomaly as African time. Instructively, our Indian friends who are also habitual latecomers have proven that late coming is not exclusively African, making nonsense of the cliché of African time. Late coming is also so chronic in India that Bollywood icon Amitabh Bachchan did not only make the headline for his punctuality but also for a rare episode of lateness.
For me, African time is majorly a big problem for us in Africa because there's no how you fix a time. Before you know it, the time is run out, and by the time you see, you're already late for the event. Like now, my plan is to get to where I'm going by 11:30, and look at the time, and this is past 12, and it's because of African time, and I have my colleagues that are delaying me already because of one unforeseen contingencies.
You know you have an event for 2 o'clock. You're supposed to, considering the distance, you're supposed to leave home like 12, 1, and you're leaving home exactly that 2 o'clock that you have an appointment for. Obviously, you can't get there by 2, considering the traffic and all of that. You get there late.
African time is a slogan synonymous with Africans, just because we don't plan. So everything falls back to, wow, it's an African time thing. Where you have an event planned for 2, and you're just setting out. You know there's traffic, you know there's unforeseen situations, and you know in an ideal situation without all the other unforeseen circumstances, you need like an hour to get to the location. And you're just setting out, like just about that an hour to get to the location. And then here you go, African time. I can't help it, there's traffic. Yes, you know there's traffic. Yes, you know there's going to be hiccups on the road, so you need to plan ahead, like give enough time, like 2 hours to get to where you need to get to.
Truly, we live in cities where the public transport system is unreliable. To add to the agony, we have poor roads, traffic jams which make things a lot more complex, but there are expectations, men of sterling character who, in spite of age, are never late for meetings and social events. Who loses the most when there is a form of lateness, whether to work, a meeting or a date? Timeliness is an absolute necessity, as this is a show of respect to the person you are having a meeting, date or working relationship with. Time heals any kind of injury we've been made to understand, but just like every injury, it leaves scars in its wake. Common reasons for tardiness are traffic, 31%, lack of sleep, 18%, bad weather, 11%, and chores involving kids, 8%. Other reasons include public transportation delays, pets, spouses, TV and internet usage. It is known that time management is not about structuring time, it's about structuring priorities. The common tendency is to get caught up in day-to-day work with things that are urgent but not always important. Little wonder Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote, Time flies over us but leaves its shadow behind. Just like some of the world's greatest problems, the origin of African time or lack of proper time management is something that seems to elude us. Be that as it may, the damages it digs into the economy, the daily lives of individuals and organizations cannot be overemphasized. A quick look into a report in one of the dailies showed over 20,000 ghost workers discovered in government ministries. 20,000 ghost workers paid for doing nothing. That's 20,000 workers reducing the amount of productivity. Maybe now you know why you get such poor services from government-owned organizations. These figures leave out the number of people who come late to their duty posts and those who just come, clock in and disappear during office hours to do their own things or just lazy around doing nothing. In a work environment, one person's tardiness creates a ripple effect of negativity and resentment from co-workers. This doesn't come as a surprise, as the said government also come into office laden with promises and time frames to deliver them, but most leave office claiming time wasn't enough after wasting the time they have on nothingness. Budgets set to run the country seem to always come in late, and this in turn affects the economy and the citizens at large. Safe to say, like government, like people, or a curious case of bad meets evil.
I would say it affects businesses, and it also affects, I wouldn't want to say growth, but it affects us in a bad way.
The African time has really affected the whole economy as a whole. Right from school, kids don't get to school in time, you're going to work in the morning, school's supposed to resume at 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:30 you still see kids on the road. Even work, punctuality. You know there's traffic, you can't help it. It's normal, it's the norm. Why don't you leave your house early? Why don't you plan ahead? Why don't you just give that time that you already know, I need an extra hour to get to work. Why don't you set that time aside and get out early so that you won't be part of the people that come in late?
African time, as a Nigerian, is becoming a culture in our system, which is very wrong and need to be corrected. It's not like what is happening in the system today. The economy, as in depression, going down. People like the current president is coming to see that Nigeria comes up again. But because of our mentality, our culture, what we are trying to take as our culture, is really affecting the economy. But I pray that God on our side will succeed.
Africa time, ó affect wa ní Nigeria gan. Torí pé kíni, nísìn èèyàn lè promise yẹn nísìn pé kó wá ní aago 6. So time gbà tó bá máa padà wá, ó lè jẹ́ pé nǹkan bí aago 8, aago 7, if gan ó lè wá ní ìrọ̀lẹ́. So ẹni tó ti gbẹ́mìí lé tó sọ wípé ó máa wá tó ti gbẹ́mìí lé dáadáa, ẹni yẹn á dẹ̀ ti dúró time gbà tó bá máa wá sí kò ní rí mọ́. So irú wa báyẹn èmi gan mi ò like ẹ̀, kò wá okay.
We can curb it. It's something we can work on if one has a full plan. If you can plan ahead, you can be disciplined. That's the point.
A habitually late person is not only illustrating his own dissatisfaction with his workplace or event, but is beginning to affect the work habits and morale of others. In these cases, you need to pay attention to the situation before morale suffers. Some employees tend to spend more time on social media and their phones more than the hours they are supposed to put into work. The entertainment industry is one of the culprits when it comes to African timing. A show billed to start for 5 p.m. most often than not starts at about 8 to 9 p.m. This makes the event prolonged into the night, and in a state where security is said to be below par, lives and property put into danger is the end result of this. The blame game for lateness flies around, from organizers to the artists to perform at the event, and also to the audience who have bought their tickets to come and enjoy the event. The case of Kim Kardashian still remains fresh in our minds, as she was in and out of the event before the hall got full to capacity, with latecomers who forgot they were dealing with someone who truly understood the famous line, "Time, na money."
We don't seem to care about time, and we assume that, well, if I get there late or if they don't have enough crowd, they'll have to wait, and then everything runs behind schedule. So that's how we tend to live. It's like we're used to that. In my workplace, what I have done is I have lived by example. Get to work in time, and that has boosted the morale, like, oh, now they know she's at work before 8. And what that tells them is she's going to watch me and ask where I'm at so time. What we have put in place now, the HR has also done a time marking scheme where, although we're working on biometrics for now to see what best fits for the organization, but in the interim, there's a mark time that is drawn off when the register is actually checked to make sure that employees that have not signed off by the exact time or 5 minutes to the time is assumed to be late. So there's a consequence when you're late, depending on how many times you've been late in a week. So there are consequences, and there's also appraisal, appreciating if you're a punctual worker. They have taken that into recognition to recognize the regular the employees that comes in early and do their work. So there's the pros and the cons.
There are so many reasons why we attend a function late. Blaming it on traffic seems to be the easiest of them all, but if there be first a willing heart, you will probably never make it late anywhere and be a good and true ambassador of time. Maybe it's time to set the clock 10 minutes ahead.